Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 3rd of September 2021. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, before we get into the news from the last 24 hours, just wanted to give a quick shout out here that I did another live stream with David Hoffman of Bankless. Would have been yesterday for a lot of you, so if you haven't watched that yet, definitely go check it out. I'll link it in the YouTube description. We spoke a lot about kind of like the recent NFT mania, especially around something called Loot, which I kind of covered in the Refuel a couple of days ago, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about today in a little bit. But yeah, it was just a casual conversation for about an hour, no real agenda, and if you've watched one of our live streams before, you'll know what they're about. But if you're interested in going and kind of like watching that, of course, it'll be linked in the YouTube description for you to see. All right, so Reece Witherspoon, a famous actress here today, tweeted out, "Just bought my first ETH, let's do this, hashtag crypto Twitter." Now, this was kind of like the topic of today's Daily Gwei newsletter, and essentially the topic was top signals. So whenever a celebrity kind of like tweets about crypto or says something positive about it, especially one that's just got like nothing to do with crypto, right? They've never said anything about it before, and it's kind of like feels very random, feels a little bit inorganic. You have people saying, "Oh my God, this is a top signal. We're going to go to zero, blah, 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 massive crash coming, all this sort of stuff." I actually push back on that because as I kind of like went into detail about in my newsletter today, I don't think the traditional top signals work anymore. And I think I've said this on the Refuel before. They haven't worked for quite a while. We have had this sort of stuff happening for months now. And obviously we had the crash, right, from 4,400 to 1,700 on ETH. And there was like a bit of a tiny 2-3 months, I guess you could call it, crypto winter. I mean, ETH is at 4K right now. We're going to probably break all-time high this weekend at this rate, right? So pretty much, we haven't got into another long-term bear market or anything like that. So I don't think these things are top signals anymore. Suzu actually had a great tweet like a few months ago, I think it was back in February, where he said, "Signs of adoption are signs of froth are indistinguishable from signs of adoption." And it is, because these days, yes, much of the crypto ecosystem is still very speculative, right? I mean, pretty much most of it is, but that's because crypto is a financial first kind of movement, right? The networks are financialized, everything that you can do on them revolves around finance, or at least most of the things, but it's a lot more than, I guess, kind of like speculating on coins on exchanges. Because in the past, before Ethereum had this bustling ecosystem, even, as kind of like recent as 2019, most people were just like sitting on centralized exchanges, buying different coins for whatever reason, right? Maybe they saw some YouTuber talking about it, or maybe they kind of like saw it on Reddit or whatever, and just kind of doing that sort of speculation there based on narratives, like purely narratives. And of course, that still happens a lot today. I mean, Cardano has a massive market cap because of narratives and marketing and hype and all that sort of stuff. And they're not the only ones. There's plenty of stuff out there. But I would argue that the Ethereum network is obviously seeing a massive amount of adoption, right? Not just across like DeFi, but with NFTs and DAOs and all the regular stuff that we all use, even the Web3 stuff. And it's not just Ethereum, right? The wider crypto ecosystem is also getting adoption. We have layer 2s going live finally. We have the proof of stake beacon chain live. 1559 is live. And this was my basis for kind of like thinking when we crashed. I was like, it's not over. Nothing's over. Like, we're not going into a 2-year bear market. I don't believe that those bear markets are going to exist anymore. And I have been saying for quite a while that I think it's a super cycle for adoption. And with adoption comes rising prices. So from that point of view, I just kind of look at this whole ecosystem right now and look at these celebrities and be like, okay, well, that's just a celebrity adopting this kind of like tech, or just like buying their first ETH, maybe to play around with it. Maybe Reece Witherspoon wants to do something with NFTs. Well, to do that, you need ETH because you've got to pay gas fees, right? Or kind of like you use ETH to buy NFTs or to kind of like mint them or whatever. So it doesn't just mean that she's buying ETH just to speculate on and it's going to sell it later. Maybe she is. Who knows? Like, I don't know what she's doing with it. Or maybe this was just like her PR manager or like her social media manager kind of tweeting this out for her. I don't know. But generally, I just don't think the traditional top signals that we've kind of looked at before are relevant anymore. I mean, in hindsight, you'll probably look back and be like, oh my God, I should have sold. Like, there were all these kind of people talking about it. I said the other day that my friend's dad talking about Cardano was kind of like a top signal for me. And he really did talk about it around the time that the market topped, but I think that was just a coincidence. I actually don't think that really meant anything. But I have a lot of friends that, like real life friends or people who just weren't really into crypto, that have come in now through things like NFTs, through things like DeFi, and they've stuck around. And I think, there's a lot more education now. There's a lot more signal than noise these days, especially in the Ethereum media landscape. I mean, you have so much free education to access to keep you you grounded in times of like extreme speculation, whether that's I guess going up or going down, and it kind of like keeps you going. I mean, I obviously produce a lot of the content through Daily Gwei and ETHub, but I also listen to a lot of what Bankless does, read a lot of what they do. There's plenty of others out there like the Defiant, DeFi Dad. I mean, just generally crypto Twitter. There's just so much more signal than there is noise, and this is very different to what it was like back in the day. I remember 2017. There was no signal. It was all noise. The kind of most popular place for Ethereum-related discussion was Reddit, and on Reddit, there was a lot of noise about like Ethereum and when E2 was coming and when this was coming, when that was coming in. There was so much confusion, but now you have so much signal that you can go through, and you don't even have to kind of like pay attention to that confusion. Yes, crypto Twitter is still a mess, but you don't even have to use crypto Twitter. I mean, I highly recommend it, obviously, but there are plenty of people who will summarize it for you. I mean, I do exactly that on the Refuel every day, right? I summarize crypto Twitter, what I've seen kind of like happening and the most interesting things in the Ethereum ecosystem, but not even just me, as I said, like Bankless and all the others. So from that point of view as well, we just have so much more kind of like signal to keep this ecosystem kind of like on the positive side of speculation rather than the negative side. And I mentioned in my newsletter today that not all speculation is created equal. There's like zero sum, negative sum, and positive sum. Negative sum is like the scams, right? The kind of like really bad scams and rug pulls and hacks and all that sort of stuff. Then you have like the positive sum stuff, which is essentially turning speculation into something that can be used for good. So for example, Optimism announced that they're going to be using all of their profits that they earn from the Optimism network, at least for the time being, to go towards public goods, right? So that's harnessing that speculation that's happening and those fees and putting it towards public goods. There's 1559, which makes the network usage positive sum because it means that ETH is getting burned and all ETH holders get to basically get a piece of that essentially, because obviously the burn is one of the value drivers for ETH. And I mean, there's so many other examples of this. Gitcoin, of course, like the more money that is made in the ecosystem, the more money that gets donated on Gitcoin. It's a pretty good correlation there. So you have all of that stuff kind of like happening, and then obviously there's zero sum stuff where someone wins and then someone loses. There are some kind of that going on, but I think we're kind of like going towards more of the positive sum sort of stuff, and we're making more positive sum games within the ecosystem. I think that's just another sign of like adoption. And kind of like the fact that we're kind of, yes, we're frothy. The market's really frothy. There's a lot going on, especially the NFT markets and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, what did people expect from adoption? As I mentioned the other day, OpenSea, I mean, probably at this point has 350,000 unique addresses that have touched their contracts. That's nothing, guys. Like we're going to onboard the world. The world is billions of people. So don't expect these things to kind of like slow down over the long term. I truly believe, as I've said, we're in the early adopter phase. That's just going to keep growing from there. The innovator phase is done. There's plenty of innovations left to do, but we have basically jumped, I think, from the innovator phase to the early adopters because we have things for them to use now. We have DeFi, we have NFTs, layer 2s are going live so they can do it on the cheap as well. We have all this other infrastructure and all these other kind of things happening. It's just, we've just kind of like jumped that kind of chasm there. And because of that, I believe, as Suzu has said, signs of froth are indistinguishable from signs of adoption, and all of these old top signals are no longer going to work. All right, so the bit of regulatory news out of this guy called Walter Bloomberg, who seems to kind of just tweet Bloomberg headlines. But essentially, he said, regulators are investing crypto exchange developer Uniswap Labs, the SEC probe examining company behind one of the biggest decentralized exchanges, SEC enforcement also seeking information from crypto lending platforms, sources say. And I quote tweeted this by saying, Uniswap smart contracts are unaffected. And they are unaffected because they're completely decentralized. There is nothing a regulator can do unless they want to take over the entire Ethereum network in order to kind of like change the contracts or shut down the contracts. And obviously that's not going to happen, right? Or at least if it did happen, it would be a lot messier than just Uniswap getting messed with. But anyway, what I wanted to kind of like focus on is the fact that from what I'm hearing from people I've spoken to, a lot of DeFi teams got this, and essentially what it is basically an information request. The SEC is probing these teams because they want to know more about what they're doing, not necessarily that they're under an investigation for any kind of like criminal activities. So don't take this as a kind of sign that Uniswap has done something wrong and the SEC is going after them or whatever. They're just probing for more information about what they're doing. Now, I've probably said this on the refill before. I think I have, where I think this is just total bullshit. I'm sorry, but the SEC should not be focusing on these sorts of things. They should be focusing on all the bloody scams. Like, it took them 5 years to charge BitConnect or something, like 4 or 5 years. What the hell? Like, why are they focusing so intently on DeFi and Uniswap and stuff like that? Maybe it's just because they're much more visible, I guess. But this is what I hate about regulatory bodies and regulatory agencies, is that they actually haven't done anything to protect investors or anything. Like, what have they done? Like, they've gone after hardly any of the scams. The ones that they do go after, they hit with like a small fine. It's just, I mean, it's so bad. Like, if you actually look at the enforcement that has happened from the SEC, it's just been terrible. And now they're going after legit companies. And as I said, they're not like going after them in a criminal matter. They're just kind of like asking them for information, and that's all fine, but they're spending their resources on this when they should be spending their resources on going after the scams. Maybe they're doing both, I'm sure they are, but I don't know, like, this just kind of rubs me the wrong way. But I also saw some kind of like chatter about this on Twitter, people saying that the SEC's kind of like window for kind of like enforcements for like their calendar year is ending in September, so normally they kind of like do a lot of enforcement kind of action in September to make up for that quota, kind of like how police have quotas and stuff like that, which makes sense as well. But still, I mean, I'm still very annoyed by this. I would like to see much more enforcement of the actual bloody scams in crypto rather than the legit projects, because at the end of the day, you know, Uniswap, yes, okay, you can make an argument that Uniswap enables these scams because people list their scam tokens on Uniswap and then people go and trade it and whatever. But Uniswap, the team themselves, that's not their fault. They just put this out there. This is just what happens with a generalized neutral platform, or with something that kind of anyone can do what they want on. It's not like you charge the gun owner if someone, the gun shop owner, if someone that bought a gun there goes and kills someone, right? That's not how it works. So you shouldn't go after Uniswap Labs, the team that built the contracts, just because someone decided to use their contracts in a bad way or to scam someone. You should go after the actual people doing that. So yeah. I mean, you guys know my general views on regulations, and especially financial regulations. I think most of them do more harm than good. I think the SEC is just LARPing when they say they're protecting investors. I don't think they've actually successfully protected any investors in crypto at this point. So yeah, I'm just not going to go on too much of a rant about that, but generally I just think it's kind of like crappy. But anyway, as I said, this is not something to worry about. This is basically just an information probe for now, and I don't think there's going to be any criminal kind of like charges brought against any of the DeFi teams, or at least any of the legit DeFi teams, because they haven't done anything wrong, right? Unless the SEC says, oh, well, you did this wrong because like it's unregistered security, blah, blah, blah. I don't think so, because a lot of these US-based DeFi teams have a team of lawyers. They, if you look at the language they use when they launch their tokens, it's very, very careful. They have foundations that are offshore that launch the token. I mean, DYDX recently did this where they said, okay, DYDX, the company didn't launch it. The DYDX, the foundation launched the token, and all that kind of stuff. So I don't think this is going to be a big deal, but yeah, I would like to see the SEC going after the actual scams more than they go after the legit companies. But what can you do? What can you do? All right, Robert Leshner here put out an interesting tweet today where he said, college majors in 2030, crypto economics, NFT art history, protocol political science, and memology. So I actually think these might become majors before 2030. Like 2030 is 9 years away. It's too long. And I actually think that this sort of stuff should be being taught right now. Crypto economics is the basis for basically this whole ecosystem. It's basically what everything runs on. It's what all the chains run on. It's what all the DeFi kind of stuff runs on. It's even what NFTs run on. NFT art history. Well, maybe that has to be in 2030 because there's not too much history about NFTs just yet, but there is still a healthy body there. I mean, it goes back as far as I think like these Pepe NFTs on Bitcoin or something like that. But if you even want to just go back to 2017 with punks and crypto kitties, I mean, it's still a few years, but maybe you want to wait a bit extra to kind of like get more kind of stuff happening there. But generally, I mean, you could probably teach a whole bloody class on NFT art history already, given what's already happened in the NFT space. And then you have protocol political science, which is basically, I guess, looking at what's happening with the DeFi protocols and decentralized governance and kind of looking at protocol politicians and stuff like that. I think that could be taught right now. And memology could definitely be taught. I mean, memology, just even outside of crypto, should be something that is taught in colleges or should be something that everyone learns because memes run the world. Like, this is not something that is a crypto only thing and a crypto native thing. This is something that, I guess, I think his name is Richard Dawkins, has written about in his book about, I think it was called The Selfish Gene or something. Maybe I'm getting my books mixed up here, but he wrote about that, and he wrote about memes and stuff like that. And this has been, in the kind of works for decades. So it's not something that's new, but obviously memes rule the crypto space. I mean, the whole bloody space runs on memes. And I think memology is definitely a kind of thing that should be taught in colleges for sure. But I mean, I'm kind of like take a little bit of a biased approach here, where I actually don't think people should even be going to college. Like, you don't need to. Especially if you're in crypto, the opportunities in crypto are endless. I don't know any teams that ask for like a degree or like a PhD to get involved with them. You can get started with any team without kind of like these credentials, as long as you're kind of like a crypto native, you know the lay of the land, and you're willing to kind of like learn and level up. You'll be pretty set to get a job there. But anyway, I'm gonna move on from that for now. So Austin Griffith just put out a reminder tweet today saying, remember friends, it takes 20 seconds to throw a tiny cut of those NFT gains to builders on Ethereum. You can go to buildguild.com, which is a streaming ETH service that streams ETH to devs for building components and prototypes on Web3. So yeah, if you have some spare funds you want to kind of like chuck towards kind of like these builders, sort of like how you do in Gitcoin grants matching rounds, which is going live next week, I believe, on the 8th of September. So you've got that coming up too. Just go visit buildguild.com. Which I'll link in the YouTube description, and you can go give some kind of like ETH gains there. And, it may even be a tax write-off depending on where you are, because it could technically be classed as a donation. So who knows? That's not tax advice. Check with your tax advisor for that. But maybe it could be. Just an idea there. So Arbitrum did an AMA on Reddit overnight there, but overnight for me at least, while I was sleeping. So there's a lot of good questions kind of answered in here. You can kind of see there's a lot of questions and answers from different Ethereum community members here. I think the AMA is definitely finished by now. But yeah, so if you kind of missed this, I definitely recommend giving it a read. It answers a lot of the common questions that I've been seeing from a lot of people around Arbitrum in general, and around layer 2s more generally as well. So I'll link this in the YouTube description, and you can go check it out. So Tim Beiko has published another all core devs update from the Ethereum ecosystem, but it's not really an update, as he says here. It's a deep dive into the evolution of the roadmap for the merge, and they've moved from the HackMD platform to the Mirror platform here, which I thought was really, really cool. So you can just kind of go read through this. It goes about that. Sorry, it talks about the merge prehistory, goes through the phases, goes through the early merge, roll-up centric roadmap, everything like that. I mean, there's a lot of amazing information in here about the merge and the roll-up centric roadmap and all that sort of stuff. So I highly recommend going and giving this a read. One thing I would love to see Tim do here is basically have an NFT that can be minted for each of these posts, because Mirror lets you embed an NFT in here that you can mint, and I would mint that, and then the proceeds could go to ETH Core Devs. Like, how cool would that be? And there could be a split, just like there was for the EIP 1559 NFTs on the Mirror platform here. So yeah, anyway, go give this a read if you haven't yet. It's very, very important and full of really great information. So Prater, the second testnet for ETH2 here, has forked to Altair, which is the upcoming kind of like fork for the first fork for ETH2 that has a host of kind of like upgrades and changes to it. So it was a successful upgrade, and client teams just still have to iron out a few kinks here, but yeah, everything seems to have gone well. So if these all run well and good, I think in maybe another month or so, maybe the end of September, we will see a mainnet fork of Altair on ETH2. So keep an eye out for that. Make sure that you're ready for it. If you're running an ETH2 validator, you'll have to update, obviously, your validator and your beacon node. But this is really cool. It seems that everything's gone through quite smoothly here, and there hasn't been any issues with it. So yeah, I guess congrats to the ETH2 teams on a successful upgrade here. So Jacob Frenek put out an interesting tweet on Twitter yesterday where he said, every day more people use ETH as money. Every day the ETH is money crowd is more right and the ETH isn't money crowd is more wrong. One is betting on a 4+ year parabolic growth trend continuing. The other is betting on a 4+ year parabolic trend reversing. So what I find interesting about this is that myself and a few other like kind of hardcore Ethereans have been saying ETH is money for a very long time. I think as long as kind of like 2019, and we've been getting pushback on that like ever since then. Maybe not so much these days because it's very undeniable that ETH is money because of the NFT economy especially. But back in the earlier days, people would say that it was a cringe meme, that it made no sense, like saying ETH is money is stupid, blah, blah, blah. But for me, ETH has always been money because I've always been able to use ETH as money. Technically anything can be money, but I mean, depending on how much it's used as money, I think lends itself more to certain moneyness here. So, I mean, as Jacob says, the ETH is money crowd has just been proven completely right, and the ones that said ETH isn't money is kind of like wrong here. But on that note, I guess if you kind of like some people kind of push back and say, oh well, ETH is more than money. I mean, of course it's more than money. We don't say ETH is only money, but the ETH can be, is money, sorry, and can be so many other things, right? ETH is a capital asset. ETH is a collateral asset in DeFi. ETH is a staking asset. ETH is a kind of like consumable asset because it gets burned. There's so much stuff going on with ETH. I mean, it's not like a mono asset. It's not like Bitcoin. There's so much other stuff you can do with it, and so many other value accrual mechanisms for it as well. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of like point out that kind of like that, I guess, like meme that came to life with ETH is money is actually true, obviously, and I'm sure a lot of you have used ETH as money to do a variety of things, especially in the NFT space here as well. All right, so you may have been hearing a lot about this Loot project over the last couple of days. As I said, I spoke about it and did a TLDR of it on the Refuel a couple of days ago. But I guess there's a lot happening in this ecosystem, and Lily put out a great tweet thread here today, basically giving it a snapshot of what the Loot ecosystem looks like right now. And to be fair, I think this has only been out for about a week so far, so this ecosystem has actually blown up a lot. So you can see this kind of like flow chart here of what's going on, all the different links, and there's a thread with kind of links to all the stuff that is happening. But this was posted, I think, 24 hours ago, so it's probably outdated, unfortunately, at this point. Oh, maybe more than 24 hours ago. So it's probably outdated, but it still has a lot of great links to a lot of different things here. So definitely go check this out if you haven't already. But I guess like a little bit kind of more chatter about the Loot ecosystem and what's been going on here. I did kind of like explain why I'm excited about it in the Refuel a couple of days ago, but I had a lot of people in the Discord kind of asking about it today. I'm even more excited about it than I was a couple of days ago, and David and I spoke about this on the Bankless live stream, but I guess if I had to summarize why I'm so excited about it is because it's basically a 0 to 1 moment for NFTs. And what I mean by that, it basically changed the game when it came to NFTs. It took what was typically a top-down approach where you'd have a creator creating the art and the value and kind of like putting it out there, and then the community could latch onto it or not, buy it, speculate on it, whatever. It's done the reverse of that, where it said, well, here's some text on like on a JPEG. It's really just text. You guys can do whatever you want with this. You can make derivatives of it. You can kind of like make the art for it, whatever. You don't have to kind of like follow along with what the kind of creator said to do. And it's kind of changed people's kind of like, I guess, frame of thinking around what NFTs can be and how the metaverse can actually form on Ethereum. And that's why I'm so excited about it. So yeah, definitely go check out this thread and check out all the resources that are available here. But one kind of thing I wanted to show you guys is this LootMart from Jon Yan here. And this goes into, this kind of speaks to what I was saying before about how, because these things were just text on kind of like like white text on a black background, as you can see here, people can actually create the art. So essentially what you can do with LootMart is you can unbundle your loot bag into individual loot items as well, because the loot bags come with with 8 different items here. So you can unbundle them and then trade your loot items to upgrade your adventure and dominate the metaverse, as they say here. But also look at the art here on the right-hand side. Now, this art on the right-hand side was actually generated by an AI. This was not drawn by a person from what I saw. It was actually generated by AI. So we essentially have like a scalable way to generate art for these sorts of things, and then people can create their own custom art if they want to. They can agree upon it. They can kind of like share their ideas with each other and build different things. I mean, this whole thing's permissionless. So this is the stuff that I get most excited about, is the fact that anyone can build on this. There is no central party here. This is exactly like what Ethereum is, where it's permissionless, decentralized. Anyone can build in it. The community can agree on what's valuable and what's not. And that's what's got me most excited about the Loot project and how I believe it's a 0 to 1 moment for NFTs. And you should be paying more attention to it for sure. I'm not going to tell you to go buy it or anything. I think the floor on the loot bags right now is 20 ETH. So it's not cheap. And disclosure, I hold a loot bag and I also hold some of the gold tokens, but I hold them because I'm really bullish on the project and I think it's going to go far. So yeah, just kind of like wanted to put that out there for you guys. But also on the topic of NFTs, Immutable has put their self-serving kind of like feature live, which means that anyone can now mint and trade NFTs on ImmutableX. So 100% gas-free minting and trading, massive scalability of 9,000 transactions per second, secured by Ethereum because ImmutableX is a true L2 built on Starkware's technology here. So if you're a developer, you can go to the docs website here, which will be linked in the YouTube description. kind of like do all the stuff that they say here, and that's how you can kind of mint your assets. Now, I think from what I've seen, Immutable is going to be onboarding marketplaces like OpenSea relatively soon as well. I've had a few people ask about that. I'm like, oh, when's OpenSea going to be on layer 2? I think OpenSea are already on Polygon, but that's obviously a side chain. But like, I'm pretty sure they're going to be on Immutable. They might even be on like Arbitrum and Optimism and stuff like that. I expect them to be everywhere. So yeah, it's not going to be too much longer before you have these scalable NFTs like ZK Sync and has been focusing on this as well, and Loopring as well, of course. So yeah, I mean, I think people realize that the NFT mint costs and trading costs are really, really high, but at the same time, network effects are hard to build and hard to break. So the network effect of everything being on Ethereum is pretty much impossible to break, but we can kind of like get adoption for these layer 2s as time goes on, and you know, it's just going to take time to get those network effects to play out there. So this is just the first step, I think, from Immutable here, and I'm really, really excited to see that they've kind of like launched this and kind of like made this open to everyone, because that's how you get those network effects, right? You can't just be a centralized team doing it. You have to have it open to everyone in a permissionless way. All right, so the final thing I wanted to talk about today was a tweet that I put out where I said, I've noticed that many more people are taking profits from other coins into ETH rather than BTC or stablecoins these days. It seems like ETH has become the safe haven asset for crypto. Now, the reason why I say this is a few different reasons, and I don't think this is maybe a kind of phenomenon that's happened over the last kind of maybe month or two. I think this has been going on for quite a while, but it's definitely accelerated over the last month or two. If you look at the ETH BTC ratio, people have been buying up ETH more than they have been buying up Bitcoin and taking profits into ETH. If you look at where ETH is compared to Bitcoin in terms of getting it back to its all-time high, ETH looks like it's going to go there before BTC does. If you look at the ecosystem, the culture, everything happening, it feels like ETH is definitely the center of that, and BTC is kind of something that people don't really talk about anymore. And as Chris Boniski said yesterday in a tweet or the day before, BTC has lost its cultural hold on crypto, and I think it lost it quite a while ago. It's just the rest of the kind of ecosystem is waking up to this right now. So from that point of view, I don't understand why you would go to BTC, right? If you're taking profits from another coin, or if you're taking profits from an NFT, where are you going? Well, you're selling it for ETH, right? You're not selling an NFT for Bitcoin. A lot of people that are speculating on other smart contract platforms, they're not taking profits into BTC. Maybe some of them are, but I know a lot of them are taking profits into ETH. And you can actually see this play out in real time. I actually see it on CoinGecko sometimes, where if ETH's pumping, I go on CoinGecko and I look at what other coins are dumping on like the hourly chart. I know this is a short-term thing, but I look at that. And it's usually the other Ethereum chain, or Ethereum killer chains, or kind of like alternative layer ones. So people are obviously speculating on these other things and then thinking, okay, I've made enough money here. I want to rotate into ETH because that's where I want to kind of like store my wealth in. I don't want to go to stablecoins or anything like that. And why wouldn't you? I mean, ETH lets you do so many things. You can go and do stuff with DeFi. You can go and stake it. You can hold it as a great store of value asset that I believe is a better store of value than Bitcoin. I mean, the kind of like writing's on the wall here, and it has been for quite a while. I just think more and more people are waking up to it. But yeah, I mean, you guys know my views on all of this. I'm not going to rehash it here in the refuel today, but essentially I just I mean, personally I do this all the time, and I just think I've been seeing more and more people doing this lately, and more I guess like bigger fish do this as well, like the whales kind of trading. They may have traditionally gone to BTC or stablecoins, but I feel like they're going to ETH these days. And maybe this changes in a bear market. I don't know how ETH is going to fare in a proper bear market. I'm not talking like a 2 to 3 month dip. I'm talking an actual longer term one. I don't even know if that's going to happen. I don't think it will, but we'll have to see. Maybe it will if things get way too crazy and way ahead of themselves. But anyway, I think I'm going to leave it at that for today. Just a quick reminder before I finish it up, there is an AMA happening tomorrow in the Discord channel. So if you're free tomorrow night at 11 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, which I believe is morning for the US, and I think like lunchtime, afternoon time, I think mid-afternoon for Europe, definitely attend. But if you don't, it'll be recorded and uploaded to YouTube. But if you have any questions you want me to answer and you can't attend, go ask them in the AMA series channel in the Discord. But yeah, hope to see you all there if you can attend. But on that note, thanks for listening and watching today's refuel, everyone. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give that video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all next week. Thanks, everyone.